If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey friends! Just so you know, we enjoy the swear word and we rely on good old-fashioned humor to get through some seriously dark subject matter. At no time do we intend any disrespect toward the victims or families of the victims in the cases we cover. Also, be sure to listen to the end for a few palate-cleansing bloopers to reset your mindset. And with that, we thank you for listening and we hope you enjoy.
Hey friends, welcome to Crime Will Tell. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Carrie.
This is episode 56, and this is one that for me, I feel like it's really important for me to tell. We try to be really empathetic about what's happening in the cases that we cover, but this is one that really resonates with me as a gay person and one that I can really connect with. This is a crime that was overlooked. It was overshadowed when it happened, and it really hasn't gotten the coverage that it should have. It was a hate crime against a young victim. Her name was Sakia Gunn, and her story is one that we should all know, and we should all be appalled by what happened to her. And so this is a case that I have really wanted to cover. And again, just for me, it's really, really important that I tell her story.
Did you say her name is Sakia Gunn?
Yeah.
That's a fucking rad name.
Right? Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
And
that's a good
so
name.
if you're listening and you aren't driving or operating heavy machinery or doing something important that requires a lot of focus and care, pour yourself a drink. And Carrie, what are you sipping on?
Well, I am still working through my backlog, and I am sipping on Jameson Black Barrel today. A very sturdy, good, everyday drinking one.
Right? I dig it.
What are you drinking?
It's called Wilderness Trail Bourbon. But this is from my friends Brian and Addie, so thank you guys. It's good. So anyway, cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
Clink. Go ahead and pour you some more. You're looking a little low.
Mm-hmm.
On May 11th of 2003, a group of 5 teenage girls from Newark, New Jersey were on their way home after a night out. They had gone to hang out at the Christopher Street Piers in Greenwich Village in New York City, which sounds fucking fantastic.
Amazing.
If you're not familiar with that part of the world, Newark sits just outside of New York City. So it wasn't far for them to travel back and forth between their cities. And these teenage girls ranged in age from 15 to 17, and they were all out lesbians.
Okay.
And so this group included 15-year-old Sakia Gunn and her best friend, Valencia Bailey. How great are those names?
Those
Sakia
names are
Gunn and
fantastic.
Valencia Bailey. 2 peas in a fucking pod. And so Valencia was 15 as well. They were actually born one day apart. And these two were inseparable. They were best friends. They referred to each other as cousins.
Aww.
And news articles actually refer to them as cousins, although I don't think that they were actually blood related. I think that that's just how they referred to each other, and
they had such a strong bond.
Yeah, they were family. And the two of them were actually getting ready to celebrate their 16th birthdays together, which was just like a couple weeks away. And they had big plans of just getting the hell out of Newark after high school. Like they were just like, we're going to peace out to this town. They had big dreams, big plans. So there wasn't really any other information about the other 3 like friends that were with them that night. other than that they were more feminine presenting than Sakia and Valencia, which I'll touch on a little bit more in a minute.
Okay.
So the Christopher Street Piers, or the Chelsea Piers, they're kind of referred to as both, where they had been hanging out that night, was a place that was common for queer people to hang out, especially for members of the Black queer community.
Okay.
It was a place where they felt safe and comfortable and could be their true selves without judgment. There wasn't a place like that for these girls where they could hang out in Newark. So they would often venture to New York to hang out at the piers, and they could meet other young queer people from all over the city. So it was
Yeah.
just a really cool thing. So they made that trip back and forth quite a bit.
That's great.
And it was just kind of their spot. So
I like that they had a safe space. Not everybody does. And so having
right,
that,
exactly.
it's very, very important. Yeah.
Yeah. So after a fun night out together, they took a train back to Newark, and then at 3:30 on that Sunday morning, which also happened to be Mother's Day, they were waiting for a bus in downtown Newark, New Jersey, at the corner of Broad and Market Streets. But as they were waiting for their bus, a car with two men, 29-year-old Richard McCullough and his friend Alan Pierce, who was actually driving the car, pulled up to where these girls were waiting and started propositioning them.
Mm.
They were kind of, I think, asking more of the feminine ones in the group if they wanted to go party.
Creepy.
Yeah, they had been out drinking that night and apparently wanted the night to continue with this group of girls.
Mm.
And so they told the men, they were like, look, we're gay and we aren't interested. Like they were just like, we're not interested in your advances. And that's where this interaction should have ended. The men, the adults, should have respected them and driven away, leaving these girls to enjoy the rest of their night and get home safely. But that's unfortunately not what happened. The details of what happened next come from Valencia Bailey's recollection of that night. After the girls told them multiple times that they were gay and that they weren't interested with going with them, one of the other girls in the group called the men broke, basically just kind of antagonizing them a bit for hitting on these teenage girls. They're like, you fucking losers. Like, we're not interested. Run along. Like, leave us
And you said they
be,
were
whatever.
29, right? Yeah. So that's like almost double their age. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's gross.
Yeah.
That's gross.
And so these two guys, they ended up backing up their car and parking. They got out of the vehicle. They approached this group of teens, confronting them. Sakia Gunn moved toward McCullough, the Richard McCullough, trying to protect her friends. And, she was just trying to kind of diffuse the situation. Like, look, we're not interested. Like, I'm sorry, man, but like, just if you can leave us alone, whatever. Again, telling him that they were all lesbians and not interested. And McCullough then made a move like he was going to punch Sakia and called her a dyke. His friend Alan Pierce was also trying to diffuse the situation. He was telling his friend, like, look, man, like, let's just chill out, and trying to get him back to the car. And so these two men started kind of moving back towards their car. But Richard, ended up calling out to Sakia and was like, hey, come over here, trying to get her to come over to the car. And she was like, no, I don't have to do what you tell me to. You're not my dad. Like, fuck you. So then instead of just, getting in the car and driving away, McCullough pulled out a knife. He grabbed Sakia from behind and he held the knife to her neck. She was able to slip out of his hold and, kind of get away from him. And he just began like swinging the knife around towards the girls. And in the commotion, he ended up stabbing Sakia in the left side of her chest, striking her in the heart. When Valencia was recounting this, she was just like, I was trying to get out of the way. And then the next thing I know, like she said that Sakia took a couple of steps and just ended up collapsing to the sidewalk. So then these two men just jumped in their car, drove off, fled away, leaving Sakia bleeding out on the sidewalk.
Were all the four girls were there, right?
Yeah, they're all there.
Jesus.
And so Valencia gets on the ground. She's holding her best friend, Sakia, like in her lap as she's bleeding out on the sidewalk. And the other three girls started just trying to flag down any car. I mean, this is 3:30 in the morning. It's a
Yeah.
very busy intersection, but in the middle of the night, you don't know how much traffic there's going to be. So they're trying to flag down cars as they pass by. And fortunately, someone ended up stopping to help them. They got Sakia in the back seat. Again, Valencia's holding her, and this person drove them to University Hospital, which fortunately only ended up being like less than a mile away from the bus stop where they were waiting. But Sakia took her last breath in Valencia's arms, and she was pronounced dead when they arrived at the hospital.
Okay. I know this was 2003. Did any of the girls have cell phones? I'm guessing no.
You know, it didn't say, but I'm assuming that they did not.
So they couldn't call 911. They had to flag down somebody or go find help.
Right. And one thing that's really frustrating about this case is there was actually, because this was a very popular part of the city, a very big intersection, there was actually a like a little police station, like a little booth, like a police booth that was supposed to be manned, but no one was working that night.
Ah, man.
Well, I guess I should say either like there was no one working that night, or if they were, they ignored the situation, because in some interviews it was said that basically like even if it was occupied and there was a cop working, a lot of times they really just ignored what was going on, so that even if a cop had been there, they wouldn't have necessarily expected a police officer to come over and assist. Like that was just kind of what they expected from the police department at the
Well,
time.
what the fuck is that supposed to be there for then?
Yeah. So, but it's my understanding that there was no one
Jesus.
working in the booth that night that could have maybe gotten her help sooner.
I feel like at that point, it's better if nobody's working the booth as opposed to somebody working the booth and going, I don't see anything.
I was looking the other way.
The motorist that stopped, this poor motorist at 3:30 in the morning went from 0 to a fucking 100. So let's think about the actual logistics of this motorist stopping to help these, let's be real, children, because they're
Right.
15 years old. There's clearly blood. And the motorist stops, gets Sakia and Valencia in the car and is driving to the hospital. And even though it's only a mile away, I bet that felt like the longest mile of this motorist's life. And
Right.
kudos to this motorist, because would you have stopped?
I don't know.
I don't
And
know if I would have stopped. And that makes me feel like a fucking shitty human.
right in the middle of the night. Yeah,
As
I
a
don't know.
female, I probably would have been like, well, I don't know. I feel like if we were driving down through that intersection at 3:30 in the morning and we saw two fucking children on the side of the road, we may have stopped. I would like to believe that we would have, because we probably wouldn't have sensed any other danger.
Right. I same. I hope that I would have, but
I don't know.
I don't want to be like I absolutely would have. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have.
So yeah, it's a tough
It's,
thing to
yeah,
try to navigate.
kudos to this person, because that person didn't know what the situation was, but clearly someone was in need of serious medical help.
Right. Yeah. Sakia was born on May 26th of 1987. So like I said, she was 15 years old when her life was senselessly robbed from her. She lived in Newark, New Jersey with her mother, Latona, and her grandmother, Thelma.
I love the name Thelma.
I know. And one thing that is really heartbreaking about this case was like number one, it was Mother's Day.
Oh my God.
Her mother recounted that she said that, she had gotten a call that her daughter had been stabbed. She thought that she was just like getting stitched up at the hospital, and then got there and learned that she had been killed. Her mother, Thelma, actually ended up being taken to the same hospital because when she found out that Sakia had been stabbed, she collapsed. So her grandmother ended up being transported to the hospital because she was having like
A medical
I don't know.
episode.
Yeah, because she was so worried about her granddaughter. And then once there, they learned that she had been killed. And while this is all happening, police took Valencia into a room for questioning. They wouldn't let her out. She wasn't able to be like, basically her friend died in her lap, and then they just took her in and like were keeping her separated from everything that was going on. And she's 15 years old. Like, so just like so many things in addition to Sakia losing her life, like the people around her were dealing with a lot of just chaos and added just
Can I play devil's
stressors.
advocate though?
Yes.
The police, I'd like to believe that they were doing the best they can. They probably weren't sure how many
Right.
layers to this situation there were, and their training, I'm not an expert by any stretch, but what I do know is like 0.0001% is they are trained to assume there's continued threat until they can validate that there isn't.
Right. No, and I totally understand that. I just like in my mind I was just like, "Oh my god, this poor girl's 15. She just watched her best friend die and now she's just being held in a room and has no clue what's going on. Her mom isn't there with her.
Yeah.
She's confused, she's scared
Yeah.
until they could like sort it all out."
I'm sure Valencia was fucking freaking scared. And
Right. Yeah.
also, I'm sure PTSD after this.
Right, just heartbroken.
Oh
I
my God, she
mean,
lost her
yeah.
bestie.
Yeah,
Oh
and
my
she
God.
was a victim in all this too. Like he was
Absolutely.
threatening her. So again, like I said, Sakia lived with her mom and her grandmother. She was a sophomore at Newark's West Side High School. She was very popular among her peers, and she was just like a dream kid. She never got in any kind of trouble. She was smart and kind and
Oh my
funny and a
gosh.
leader. She was a star basketball player, and she had dreams of playing as a guard in the WNBA.
This girl was talented. Holy moly.
Right? And she came out as gay when she was 12.
12.
And she was just loved and supported by her family and friends,
I love
which
that. That makes me so happy.
is in 2003. And just, I mean, I think it's fairly common knowledge that there's a big stigma in the Black community towards gay people. It's
Yeah.
getting better, but
Yeah.
at that time, for her to have so much
Yeah.
support in her family and her friend group, like, was huge. And
Those are
so
good
she was just,
humans.
she knew who she was and she was still loved and supported. And I think that that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So Sakia identified as an aggressive or an AG,
What
which
does
is a
that
term
mean?
mostly used in the Black community for a gender nonconforming, masculine presenting lesbian.
Gender non-conforming masculine presenting lesbian. That is a mouthful.
So, I mean, at that time, this is 2003, she wore baggy jeans, she wore oversized t-shirts. She just dressed more masculine. So she was very, open about her sexuality and very confident about who she was. Valencia, her friend, also identified as an AG, and when they met in 6th grade, the two just immediately bonded and became the best of friends. And I think that at that age, they would have been considered tomboys,
Yeah.
and they took comfort in each other because there weren't many other girls like them. And so, like I said, they just like became inseparable. They were like two peas in a pod for sure. I think back to me at 15, and I lived in a small town in the middle of nowhere, Missouri. I was scared and sad and just trying to hide who I was. So
Mm.
when I'm reading these articles, I have so much respect for Sakia's confidence and for her being able to live her life truthfully, even at such a young age. Because even in 2003, I would have been in my early 20s and I was still hiding who I was. And so the fact that
Mm.
at 15, she's like, this is me, take it or fucking leave it. Like, the amount of respect that I have for her is just,
Takes a lot of personal strength. Yeah.
yeah. And so, like, reading through all these articles and stuff, like, I wish I could have known Sakia and her friends when I was a teenager. Like, her energy and her confidence had to have been so contagious. And I could have used so much of that at that age that like I would have given anything, be like, can I go with you guys to the piers?
Hell
Please.
yeah.
Like I just to see people
Just to be
like me
around
and
it.
be around it, like I would have given anything. And so just a lot of this was just very like for me, because I just was like, damn, that girl knew who she was, and I
She
fucking
did.
respect that so much. And so she obviously had a huge impact on the people who knew her. An estimated 2,500 people showed up at Sakia's funeral to celebrate her life.
Holy shit.
And that amount included a ton of high school students. And what's so fucking frustrating is that her high school decided not to cancel classes on the day of her funeral so that students could attend. And so many of the students just ended up walking out of their schools so they could be there. So following her murder, young people in Newark began contacting their local elected officials to make them aware of the dangers that queer people in their community were facing. 4 days after she was killed, hundreds of people ended up going to Newark's City Hall demanding that their community leaders create safe spaces for young queer people, which I think is just phenomenal.
Like literal, legit, like actual physical safe spaces.
Just like, can you create a community center or just somewhere that like if young people need a place for support and love and just resources, that they have a place that they can go, because there wasn't anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the same day that these young people were doing that, Richard McCullough ended up turning himself in to the police for Sakia's murder.
He did.
There wasn't a lot of information about it, but there was like a little bit of a manhunt for him, you know, but it wasn't covered in articles. Like it was just kind of like they were looking for him, but it didn't, like, it just didn't seem that important.
Did it seem like they were like, it's just a lesbian, like whatever. If we find him, we find him. Great. But, you know, we're not going to like put all of our energy on this.
It wasn't touched on. There weren't articles like manhunt for, like, police are searching for, you know, the killer of a young, like there weren't articles like it was all kind of just like after the fact. Like there wasn't this urgency to find this person who committed this crime. And so he ended up, you know, turning himself into police. He told them that Sakia ran into his knife and that he didn't intentionally stab her. Like that was kind of his, just like, she ran into it. I just had it out, whatever. McCullough was arrested on May 16th of 2003. He was charged with murder, weapons possession, and bias intimidation. The murder charge was under New Jersey's bias crime statute, which gives harsher penalties for crimes that were motivated by a victim's nationality, race, or sexual orientation. He could have faced up to 118 years in prison if he was found guilty on all of those charges.
Wow. Okay.
However, on March 3rd of 2005, so almost 2 years after she was killed, McCullough was offered a plea deal after prosecutors got approval from Sakia's family to do so, and he pleaded guilty to aggravated manslaughter, aggravated assault, and bias intimidation. He faced up to 30 years in prison, and he took the plea deal because he didn't want to plead guilty to a hate crime, because he didn't feel like the murder was a hate crime, because he thought Sakia was a male. Even though the group of girls told him multiple times that they were all lesbians. So I'm going to call some total bullshit on that argument.
Yep.
Like that is just
I
such
think
horseshit.
he knew damn well what the fuck he was doing. And I think he had a little ego and dick complex, if you will.
Really? You're not interested?
You're not like, you can resist me? You don't even like dick? What?
Surely
Bullshit.
not.
Now, do I think that he intentionally intended to kill Sakia? Probably not. But when you brandish a knife and start flinging it about in the very close proximity of other human bodies, what the fuck do you think is going to happen?
Right. Yeah. So if you were wondering what happened to McCullough's friend Alan Pierce, who was with him the night of the murder and driving their vehicle. Well, he did not face any charges. Not a one. Thomas
Why?
McTeague, who was the Essex County prosecutor for the case, said that, quote, his actions were not admirable, but it was determined not to charge him. I am not sure how I feel about that. I know that he was not a part of the actual murder. He was trying to get his friend to leave, but he did not do anything to help get Sakia any sort of help. He didn't encourage his friend to turn himself in immediately.
I bet he was really scared.
They wanted to have him as a witness
That
for
makes
the
sense to me.
prosecution during a trial if it led to that. So at McCullough's sentencing hearing, his attorney tried to paint his client as this like respectful, kind man who had just been an absolute fucking delight to work with and
No,
who had no sort of violent criminal history.
no,
He did have a conviction as a juvenile for marijuana possession, but who fucking
whatever.
cares?
Nobody cares about that.
The positive crap that his attorney may have like was saying might have been true, but all of that stuff wasn't true the night that Sakia was killed. Someone can be respectful and polite and not pose any sort of threat to people of authority. And let's be real, other men. But when it came to approaching and propositioning young girls, like children, like let's be real about what it was. They were
Straight up children.
and his advances were shot down, and he learned that they were gay. The hateful and violent side of that ego bruised, kind and respectful man came through with a fury. You treat people you value differently than people you look down on.
Yep.
And that's pretty plain and fucking simple. He did not value or respect females, and especially gay ones.
Yep.
There were so many opportunities that he, as an adult, should have walked away from that situation that night. He should have never approached a group of girls that age. First and foremost, that's like gross and it's icky and not okay. So when they said that they weren't interested in his advances, they should have driven away and left them alone, but they didn't. When they repeatedly told him that they were gay, not interested in men, should have walked away. When he realized how young they were, again, should have walked away, but he didn't. He got angry and he assaulted young women. He stabbed Sakia when she defended her friends. Richard McCullough is around 5'9", 5'10", somewhere in there, and he weighed 265 pounds at the time. Sakia was 5'3" tall and weighed 130 pounds.
She did not stand a fucking chance. There's no way she could have possibly defended herself.
And she was no sort of threat to him. Again, he should have turned around and fucking walked away.
And also, who brandishes a knife to a young group of women? Who does that?
He didn't call for help. He left Sakia to die on the street and he ran away like a little titty baby. He's a homophobic, misogynistic twat, is exactly what he is.
Yep.
There is video from the hearings, and why McCullough's defense attorney is singing his praises and asking for leniency. Even someone in his corner said that he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. It's like, fuck you. Fuck you.
McCullough is the 100% reason why the situation escalated, and he is 100% responsible for Sakia's death. And if it had not been for him, Sakia would be alive today. He, and only him, is 100% responsible for this fucking mess and for the loss of Sakia.
Exactly.
He's 100% responsible. He escalated this.
So, as you know, all these people are like, he was just in the wrong place and he's just like a dream to work with. Like, Sakia's family can be seen in the courtroom crying and comforting each other, giving victim impact statements. Valencia Bailey watched her best friend die. I mean, and she was also a victim of this attack. Like in this footage, you can see her just shaking and she's crying as she is comforted by her mother and Sakia's family. Like, it's just so frustrating. So the defense and the prosecution were also trying to argue whether or not this was a hate crime or like a crime of bias. And to me, it absolutely was. Like Richard McCullough may not have gone out that night specifically looking to target and assault a group of young lesbians. But when he learned that the young women he was hitting on were gay, he called them derogatory names and he assaulted them for that reason. And that's a goddamn hate crime.
Yeah.
There's no way to spin what happened that night to not make it a hate crime.
Yeah.
Like it was. Like, let's be real about what actually happened that night. At least in my opinion, a masculine straight dude who likes to dominate women and expects them to swoon over him when propositioned got his little balls all hurt when a group of girls rejected his advances. And when there were very masculine presenting lesbians in that group, his poor, stupid masculinity and his manhood felt threatened and he reacted violently. His heterosexual male privilege was challenged. The fact that a female would prefer to be with another female over him was more than he could handle. A bruised fucking ego is what happened that night. Plain and fucking simple.
I fucking hate that.
So Sakia's mother, Latona, gave a victim impact statement during the sentencing hearing. And she talked about the heartbreak that she feels and the void that was left when Sakia was taken from her and their family and their friends. She said that Sakia was taught from a very young age not to talk to strangers. And directly to Richard McCullough, she asked, "Why didn't you get the hint?" When the girl said, "No, we are gay," that was your cue to turn around and say goodnight.
Why didn't you?
That like had such a big impact on me. Just kind of like, dude, you're an adult. Like that was your cue. You should have been the one to turn around.
And as an adult, he had the responsibility to be the bigger person, to set the example.
She did exactly what she was taught, but you as the adult, you're the one that fucked up.
Yeah. Did he respond?
He gave a very brief statement and he was kind of like, "I'm sorry," like, it was very brief and like not very sincere. He spent more time apologizing to his family for embarrassing them, basically, or, disrespecting them, not so much a concern about taking Sakia's life, I don't
Well,
think.
I think that showcases his character.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So on April 21st of 2005, McCullough was sentenced to 20 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 17 years. This was due to New Jersey's No Early Release Act that mandated that he serve 85% of his sentence.
Yep.
He would then be on parole for an additional 5 years after being released from prison. And from what I can tell, he was released from prison on May 13th of 2020. So I had mentioned earlier that residents of Newark, New Jersey were reaching out to their lawmakers, kind of just trying to demand change in their community, but they were met with a little bit of support and a lot of roadblocks. The city's mayor at the time, who was Sharp James, promised to create a gay community center, but that promise was not kept and no center was ever built. There were a lot of false promises to the community. Newark Public Schools and Westside High School, which is where Sakia, where she went to school, they refused students' requests to wear rainbow colors or hold a moment of silence in Sakia's honor, which to me is just so shitty that they just like blatantly ignored the requests of the students. But some good things did eventually happen. Following Sakia's murder, a chapter of PFLAG, or the Parents and Families of Lesbians and Gays, a chapter of that was founded in Newark, and a scholarship was created in Sakia's honor. In 2006, Cory Booker, who I fucking adore,
Cory Booker,
and who is now a U.S. Senator that represents New Jersey and a big supporter of queer rights, was elected mayor. During his time as mayor of the city, He created the Mayor's Advisory Commission on LGBTQ concerns. And in 2007, with a lot of backlash, he raised a rainbow flag outside of City Hall in support of the queer community. In 2013, an LGBTQ community center called the Liberation and Truth Social Justice Center was open to support the needs of the queer youth in the city. It
Awesome.
wasn't exactly what they wanted, but it was something, and it was just like there were little steps that were happening. The Newark Pride Alliance, an LGBTQ plus advocacy group, was also created, and a mural of Sakia was created on a building or it was actually, I think, just kind of on a wall in Newark, but it honored her memory and brought more awareness to her story. So it was like there were reminders of her that were like just things were happening, but it was like not to the level that they wanted, but it was something. On October 28th of 2023, so 20 years after she was killed, the city of Newark, New Jersey dedicated a street in her memory.
I
A
like that.
section of Academy Street was changed to Sakia Gunn Way. Reggie Bledsoe, who ran the Essex County Office of LGBTQ plus affairs, said in an article in The Advocate, "This street dedication is more than a symbol. It's a testament to the resilience and courage of the LGBTQ plus community of color. It stands as a beacon of hope, inspiring us to continue the fight for a world where every person, regardless of their race or sexual orientation, can walk freely, proudly, and without fear."
I love that.
So I had never heard of Sakia Gunn until I stumbled upon her case. And it didn't get much coverage at all at the time of her killing. According to an article in The Advocate, only 21 newspaper articles were written about Sakia following her murder. In comparison, over 650 articles were published following the murder of Matthew Shepard in 1998. Matthew Shepard's case is very well known, but if you happen to not be familiar, he was a 21-year-old college student in Wyoming who was brutally beaten by two men because he was gay. They then took him to a remote area, tied him to a fence, and left him there to die alone. He was fortunately found by a cyclist and transported to a hospital, but he died from his injuries 6 days later. Matthew Shepard's murder inspired songs, movies, and books, while Sakia's case was barely even mentioned, even in local coverage. One theory about the difference in coverage is that in 2003, Newark, New Jersey had a very high crime and murder rate. Even though Sakia was incredibly young and it stood out from other murders because it was a hate crime, it's thought that any murder in a high crime urban area wouldn't stand out like one in low crime Wyoming. And while that makes some sense, it's hard to ignore the fact that Matthew Shepard was white and Sakia was black,
Yeah.
and that race likely played a huge role in the amount of coverage that the
Yep.
two cases received. What happened to both Matthew and Sakia is absolutely vile, but the amount of concern or care for a victim based on the color of their skin is absolutely fucking disgusting to me. So I'm going to say Sakia's name and tell her story every opportunity that I can. Her life mattered and should never have been so viciously stolen from her. And the mentality that the life of a young black lesbian doesn't matter or isn't as important as the life of a white straight person is not okay. Sakia Gunn lived as a proud, confident young woman who had endless potential and died protecting her friends. So say her name, tell her story, and live proudly and love fiercely like Sakia did. And can we all please be voices for love and inclusion?
Please.
If you want to hear more about Sakia and the events that happened following her murder, there's a really, really great podcast series that I listen to called After Broad and Market, which is, again, the cross section of streets where she was killed. It's hosted by journalist Jenna Flanagan. It was just really, really interesting. So check that out if you want to. And so that is the tragic and senseless murder of Sakia Gunn.
She stood for some good shit, huh?
She
I hope
did.
Valencia
Man,
is
she
doing well
would've-
today. And I hope the other 3 that were there are doing well today.
Yeah, I didn't
they
see
were
anything about
exposed.
them, but as far as Valencia, she has not let like Sakia be forgotten. It tore her apart when
I
she
bet.
lost her, and
Can you imagine?
she's like, it wasn't in vain. Like, I got to make sure. And so she's just done everything that she can to say her name, try to make change. And I just think it's fucking fantastic. So as much as she was heartbroken, she really has been a huge advocate. And I think that that's super cool. So
That is cool.
I believe that the hard work and the voices of Sakia's loved ones have created a lot of change in that community that
That's
really,
awesome.
really needed it. So that's huge.
Thank you for bringing Sakia to our platform.
Well, yeah.
She
Thank you
deserves
for
it.
listening to her story. Absolutely.
She
And like I
deserves it.
said, I'm gonna tell her story and say her name as much as I can because it deserves to be told.
Mhm.
Like, she mattered, and I'm gonna make sure people know that. So I appreciate everybody listening.
Please, please, please share this episode so everybody can hear about Sakia and her story. Let's keep her memory alive. Let's let her death not be in vain. I like
Right,
that.
exactly. Yeah. So with that, goodbye, Carrie.
Goodbye, James. What is happening?
You're gonna love it. I'll be right back.
I don't fucking care.
I live here. I'm getting into shit.
That sounds like a really cool fucking thing.
Well, if you want to come say hi.
Kinda do.
Why do I keep doing that? So that's Biscuit.
I peel, and then I fucking burn, and then I peel.
Aw, Care Bear.
I'ma go now. I'ma leave.